Let's get more now from NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter at the Vatican. Father Sam Sawyer, president and editor-in-chief of America Media, and Kathleen Sprouse Cummings, professor of American Studies at University of Notre Dame and MSNBC papal analyst. So, Molly, we are just on the cusp of this conclave. Walk us through what's happening right now.
Anna, it is finally here. So we are just off St. Peter's Square, and I'm looking around. You can see huge crowds behind me. Of course, the world's media also out here. And people are coming down, trying to figure out what's the timing, what's going on. But this is nothing like what it's going to be in just a couple of hours. I'll walk you through the timing as we know it. Anna, you already mentioned that in the next kind of 15 minutes, we're told that the 133 cardinal electors under the age of 80 will gather in the Pauline Chapel. There will be a prayer, and then they will process to the Sistine Chapel. And the Sistine Chapel is where all the action happens, Anna. During that procession, they will be singing something called the Litany of Saints, and that's seen as kind of the guiding hand that will help the cardinals choose the next leader of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, once inside, they will take that oath of secrecy. I know we'll get to that, but during this whole period of time, we will actually be seeing this on a live feed from Vatican TV. Once, though, extra omnes, everybody out is declared, and the doors of the Sistine Chapel are closed, Anna, that is when the live pictures stop and all the action officially begins later today.
What is the energy like there on the ground right now? I can only imagine the sense of anticipation.
Yeah, Anna, we've been talking to people all day. We've been here all day, and people are excited. There's a little bit of kind of anxiety, I would say. We're already seeing kind of some different country flags flying. But I'm told, and Anna, this is my first conclave that I've covered, I'm told that in a matter of hours, as we get closer and closer to that smoke watch, there will be thousands and thousands of people, flags waving, eyes trained on that chimney, and that this is nothing compared to crowd sizes that we're going to see in just a couple hours.
Yeah, they're going to be growing behind you as we continue throughout the morning here in the U.S. Kathleen, this is a day based on thousands of years of history. Just how important of a day is it for these cardinals, but more importantly for the Catholic Church as a whole?
It's certainly important for the cardinals. It must be weighing on them incredibly, but it's a day for the whole church, and really the whole world is watching. We wish we were all in Rome, but our hearts and our eyes are on Rome watching this historic moment. Yes, it is steeped in tradition, but there are some elements of this conclave that are new. It's the largest one ever and the most diverse.
Father Sawyer, in less than half an hour, these cardinals are going to begin their walk to the Sistine Chapel to start this process where they're going to take that oath of secrecy. Talk to us about that. What's in the oath, and why is the secrecy of this process so critical?
So the oath is that they will not reveal to anyone outside the conclave what happens within or the voting. And really what it's designed to protect is the ability of each cardinal to vote his own conscience, to vote for the man he believes is best suited to be the next pope in conscience. So the secrecy, though, is not just the oath. There's also elaborate procedures around the way the ballots are cast and mixed and read to make sure that even the cardinals within the conclave can't tell who voted for whom inside the Sistine Chapel.
And why is it so important, that secrecy piece?
I think really it's guaranteed to make sure that the cardinals are not coming under pressure. You know, certainly over the course of the history of the church, we've had times where the papacy was seen as sort of a political prize to be won, where sometimes it was bestowed within families or, you know, there was financial or political pressure on it. So a lot of these regulations and these procedures around the conclave protect against that. But now in contemporary circumstances, I think really what it preserves is the integrity of each cardinal in his own conscience, in his own prayer, figuring out where he thinks the Spirit is really calling the next leader of the church to move, what kind of man we need, and what sort of issues he needs to pay the most attention to as he takes up the mantle of the successor of Peter.
Kathleen, again, this is a process steeped in history, but also with some modern adjustments, like the cell phones taken away. There are signal jammers. Can you tell us more about these modern-day changes for this conclave?
It's really extraordinary in a day and age when so little is secret. We know almost everything about everything, and we find out in real time. Yes, the procedures are dramatic, and we will probably find out eventually. They do take an oath of secrecy, but news has a way of leaking out. We'll find out more surely in time, but we won't know anything for a long time about the dynamics and what is happening, what will happen inside the Sistine Chapel in just a few hours.
And we know there's going to be that first vote today, Molly, at least that's the expectation. We've talked a little bit about the white smoke and the black smoke we'll be watching for on the outside. Black smoke meaning no pope elected yet. White smoke saying we have a pope. But what does the voting process look like inside the room?
Yeah, and Anna, I'll get to that in 2 seconds. I just wanted to share with our audience that a loudspeaker just came over the hushed crowd. Alex, what did they said? I'm just checking with my producer. They said that the procession's about to begin. So they're basically announcing, Anna, there are huge screens up here right now. It shows the whole square, but they're announcing to the crowd what's about to begin. So I do think we're going to see these crowds grow as people come to watch the procession on those screens. As far as the voting, that's right, black smoke, and it is very unlikely that a pope is chosen on this first vote. Black smoke means no pope. White smoke means there's been a 2/3 majority. And that voting inside, we're told, happens very silently. I actually spoke with our NBC News Vatican analyst earlier this week about kind of this past week, which is all politicking, all kind of lobbying and vote tallying and subtle campaigning before they actually go inside. Take a listen to how he described kind of the atmosphere in the final few hours before the conclave begins.
Father Sawyer,
what are these final hours like?
I think the final hours, what we're seeing is a lot of vote counting happening behind the scenes. There are certain cardinals that are, in a sense, whipping votes. I spoke to a cardinal yesterday who said to me, look, one of my jobs is to sort of figure out where the votes are going and which direction they're heading in, and to say, have you considered this guy or have you considered this guy?
So there's a whip.
Of course there's a whip. I mean, every U.S. senator looks in the mirror and thinks, I could be president one day, perhaps. Most cardinals think that as well at some point, or they at least think, I would like to see that guy as pope.
So, Anna, what I thought was so interesting is all of that is happening during the general congregations, especially in these final hours leading up to the actual conclave. But once inside, we are told there are no more speeches, no more campaigning, no lobbying, but it is time to put the cards on the table. And this first vote, even though we're not expecting necessarily to see that white smoke, is so significant, Chris says, and our other Vatican analysts they explain as well, because the first time that cardinals are putting pen to paper, their cards are on their table, and they'll see internally who the front runners really are.
Father Sawyer, and I'm sorry, by the way, for stepping on the sound that Molly just tossed to. That was interesting to hear from Chris White. But Father Sawyer, 133 cardinals from 70 different countries. This is the biggest, the most global conclave to date. How significant is that? And what do you see as the impact and how it might make this conclave play out a little differently?
Well, I think it's very significant. Certainly, the numbers mean that whoever's elected pope will need ultimately 89 votes to get to the 2/3 mark, which is a huge number. And as far as we can tell, in the conversation among journalists and what cardinals have been willing to say during this last week and a half, no one's anywhere near close to 89 on the way into the conclave. So this first vote really will establish sort of what the possibilities are for the cardinals within the chapel. But I think that the great diversity, the way Francis expanded the college, and particularly the way he brought in cardinals from places that had never had cardinals before, it's gonna bring in a number of different priorities that we haven't necessarily seen enter the conclave before. So concerns about how the church is doing in the peripheries, concerns about about climate change or about issues of poverty that really are central in this conclave, maybe in a way that they haven't been before.
Okay, much more of our conclave coverage still just ahead. Molly Hunter, thank you. Father Sam Sawyer and Kathleen Sprouse Cummings, please stay close.